What are the 3 developer archetypes? Which one are you and how do you get better? The 3 archetypes I'll be going over is Cowboy, General, and Mind Mapper. Starting with the Cowboy. The Cowboy is a rootin' tootin' gunslinger. Cowboys are normally great to excellent at what they do because frankly they'd be curtailed if they weren't. People wouldn't let them do what they do because they kind of just do whatever they want. They are lone wolves, they don't communicate too much, they do what they do. Let them do it. They get things done at record speed. They are the last option. You call them when all the chips are down and no one else can figure it out. I saw this a lot personally in Pretty Little Thing. There was one guy who did a lot of work on the checkout systems and a lot of stuff. If people on the website couldn't buy, there was a production grade error, red lights everywhere, and we needed something fixed, we would go to him. The amount of times he was at lunch and we were all just in the office like, we gotta go get him. When someone says bring in the big guns, that's the Cowboy. So what makes a Cowboy so good? They're great with coding problems and coming to solutions very quickly, which really is their primary metric. It's like, how can I fix this thing as quickly and efficiently as possible? And that's what they do. They are what you would traditionally call the hackers. You know, they put things together, excellent for prototyping, and for fixes, they figure it out. They don't care about anything other than the problem they are fixing. They are very often tunnel vision, and they don't ask for permission. Most rules to them are flexible, which is great because they work a lot faster and get things done. That's the good stuff. Negatives, they are normally trash at delegations. They're lone wolves. I have seen them run teams, but they often don't do it too well. And that's because their time to fix metric, the thing that they focus on the most, getting something fixed, working with other people often slows them down because they'd have to communicate things and tell them to do stuff. And to them, it's just faster doing it themselves. So very often they'll just take the reins, do what they want. And as such, the team will lift in the dust a little bit. They are impatient, kind of ties into the first part, but again, they don't want to wait. They sometimes don't even necessarily wait for permission to do fixes because that's not what they're interested in. They don't want to make sure things are done right. They want to get what's in front of them done, which can often cause problems. So the person at PLT that I spoke about that was excellent, that always did these, emergency fixes, all that stuff. When he would work on a project for a while, we kind of realized a lot of the bugs that would cause was sometimes due to his work because he would fix things quickly. And it's not necessarily bad, but it's not stable. And down the line, there would almost always be further problems because of it. Whereas there were developers that were slower to do things, but when they did them, they kind of stayed fixed. So if you're a Cowboy, how do you max out your skill set? Now, the obvious solution is that anytime you have an extreme, you have a positive or negative. So to become a better version, you want to reduce the negative without really impacting the positive. All the negatives I said, try and curtail, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes taking away the negative does actually take away from the positive as well. Sometimes it's better to just place yourself in a situation that's better suited for the type that you are. The best projects I've worked on are where I've worked with someone else that kind of is strong in my weakness, and we get to just both focus on what strengths we have and combine together. So if this is you, I would advise you look for small projects that you can put together, just things that actually exercise your skill. And again, the fact that you can get a lot done in a short amount of time means you probably actually could just go for volumes. Like smaller projects, do more of them and just get more things on your portfolio or CV, or even just try and sell small little indie projects. For the Cowboy, they are great in startups, somewhere that's not really got too established rules, where there is a lot of freedom and the time to fix things is kind of what's important, especially in startups when you just try to figure out like, okay, how are we making money, systems are in place. Excellent, because they get things done. They're great for short-term fixes, just like services. If you have a service business, we'll fix your code. A freelancer, good for that. They make great contractors. They're lone wolves, so you can kind of just give them a goal and they handle it. Great for contracting. You need to fit in with the team and you do need to communicate. So if you can't do that, you need to figure that out. But yeah, that's a better place. And also just generally running ahead and sort of laying down the pipeline for what people are going to do. They are kind of the initial builders. They hack things together and then you've got something that's working that you can actually look at and use. And then later on, other people will come in and actually refine out the processes and the systems and make them a little bit more stable. Okay, so that was the Cowboy. Next, you have the General. The generals are my way or the highway. They take on the whole project. They don't see it as just, oh, this is my side, that's your side. Their whole thing is like, they want things done properly. These are the guys on Stack Overflow who tell you that you're not using the correct practices, or that, oh, this is actually a security risk since 2022, or they're those guys. They know exactly what they're doing and they know how a project should be set up by the most correct formats. They're rigid and precise. So what makes them good? They are very knowledgeable. They know the ins and outs and they know the how-to. They know how something should be done. In an ideal world, what a code project looks like. They have unyielding standards for things that need doing right and they'll make sure it happens. They're not afraid to get their hands dirty. They will do the lion's share of the work if necessary. The thing that they hate seeing is an inappropriate structure or badly construed code. Code quality kills them. They're very decisive. They always know what needs doing and they want control even though they're not quite aware of it sometimes. They don't think they want control. They think they just want things doing right. However, it's very often things doing their way. But because they're so knowledgeable, technically speaking, they are actually true. That would be right. The negatives. they will sometimes step up if not needed. You know, very often a project just needs getting over the line and people are doing work and they see it and they're like, no, this is incorrect, things shouldn't be done that way. They're so focused on the code quality, they kind of lose the forest for the trees sometimes, and they don't see the bigger picture of what it is that they're trying to do. So in the same way Cowboys focus on time to fix, Generals focus on code quality. That's their metric. Unyielding standards can actually sometimes mean they overlook the quality of the resources they're working with. So because they expect better from themselves, the code, it often also translates to junior developers. You know, they want better work from them, and then when it's not coming through, they can get a little bit frustrated, and sometimes they end up doing the work themselves or neglecting the juniors a little bit because they can't really keep up with the standards that are set. Though we actually do communicate quite frequently, it's often not efficient enough because they communicate at such a high level for what they want. Sometimes it's difficult to understand. I've had this personally working for like some of the contracts I've done. There was a massive project that was getting set up, and there was this one individual who was incredibly knowledgeable. Like, he's probably one of the most plugged in programmers I've met in terms of just understanding how systems should work across multiple languages, multiple frameworks. But he was trying to set up the project in a very particular way, and I think there was a 3-week period like I couldn't actually code for the whole time because the CI pipeline was blocked, or like the branch I was using, there were so many things going on. Now the thing is, what we were building for the long-term vision, he actually put a lot of it in place in the sense of this was supposed to be a really big project for like hundreds of thousands of people to access, and he was building something that could support that. However, he tried to do it all from the jump. It's like everything was trying to be set correctly, and as such, like I said, we were blocked for weeks at a time. And he would often communicate and tell us why there was a problem because he set rules in the pipeline. So, you know, if you wanted to upload a git commit but you didn't have the correct git message format or something like that, it'd throw errors, but it was for everything. You know, and he would then actually like write tutorials on how to do stuff, but it was such a high level of what he was saying, it wasn't easy to follow. And even then the rules are so stringent, it's like, I'm not gonna remember all this. But that being said, I learned a lot just even being near him. Like, there's some frameworks I use now that he showed me the ins and outs of that I kind of understand are far more efficient. So how to max out as a general: work in greenfield environments. So when you have the space to actually set things up properly, this is where you shine. I know the example I gave was a bit of a negative example, but it's because the timelines didn't work out. They were bringing in contractors and need things doing quickly. If you've got a small dedicated team where the communication isn't going to be crazy to get involved with, and especially contractors as well because they come from outside, they're not as integrated in the team, it's a little bit harder. However, for greenfield projects, when you need things setting up, excellent in terms of like the structure. There's less ambiguity with them than anyone else because they know how things should be laid out. I think they just need to do a little bit more prep time with their work so that once you do get into the project, everyone hits the ground running knowing what they need to do and have the resources to do it. I would also advise you work with a great people's person. So technically you might be fantastic, but then the other side of it is actually making sure people can follow what you're doing, and if it's too high level, it can be tricky. So working with a great people person allows someone to bridge the gap between you and the people working with you. Put more time into detailed configuration before the start of a project. Like I said earlier, just making sure that when other people join and start, they can do what they need to do. The better you get at accepting less from people and creating systems for them, the easier your job gets. So I think one of the weaknesses I've seen is that they overlook what other people can output and expect higher, which is the whole unyielding standards thing. But the more you expect that people are going to do trash and you put systems in place to stop them as opposed to just, you know, expecting more and rejecting, it gets easier. When hits the fan and people have to bring in cowboys to get stuff done, just let them do it. Consider it collateral. It happens, you know, sometimes someone just comes in and messes things up a little bit. It's the price of the game. This is how it goes. So my overall advice really is seeing the system as a bigger thing, and cowboys or people that, you know, move quick but breathe things is kind of a part of that. And then also people that move a little bit slower but can go further than you because you can leverage their time. They're just parts of the system, and you know, you got to see it as a whole, not just the code. Okay, and the final type, the mind mapper. They are supreme delegators. They always know what to do and they can communicate with people super effectively. They see the big picture, they understand the assignment. Business owners love them because they get the right metrics down. So, well, the right metrics for the business. So as the general may look at the code quality and the cowboy may look at the time to fix, the mind mapper looks at the project completion. They look at the deadlines, they look at the deliverables. Everything you worry about is just a smaller piece of the big picture that the mind mapper worries about. They are mission driven. They normally rub shoulders with the higher ups because they're great at talking technical and they can also talk casual. They're great at bridging the gap. They are excellent at reducing high level problems into base solutions. So they simplify. That's one of the main things that they do. They're the tech guy that you wouldn't know is the tech guy unless you see them at their job, because they're just a normal guy. Okay, so the pros, they get the most done because they understand the best out of the archetypes. They can use people's time a little bit better. They themselves don't actually do too much code work anymore, if at all. They understand what a system needs to be done and they delegate and make sure the right people do those things. They're good to work with. They're not always the nicest, but they make time for the people that they're working with because they understand that their job is to get the most out of the people they work with, if that makes sense. Not necessarily being nice, but in terms of giving them resources or asking them, do you need help with something, kind of walk you through that kind of thing. They normally have more commercial success because the work that they do hinges more on deliverables, and it's more visual to business owners. They do the least hard work. I'm not saying that they don't work hard. I'm saying that they have the best understanding of leverage and using the resources around them, as opposed to just they themselves being the pro. They're more team based as opposed to the general account. The cons of a mind mapper, sometimes they make too simple. They reduce things down and they say, oh, why can't we just do this? And as a programmer, sometimes you're just like, I hear what you're saying, it doesn't work like that in the real world. They've been a little bit far away from the code for a bit, and they see it, what you're doing is a very small piece of the puzzle, which it may be, but it doesn't make it any easier for the coder. They often forget not everyone sees the big picture, and sometimes they fail to communicate to coders on their level. So, they'll be like, oh, we need to fix this, blah, 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 and they'll kind of just tell you from an end goal perspective. That doesn't help the developer do what they're doing, because that might not be the thing that motivates them, because they're not on high enough a level to understand the whole picture. They are not as technical as the other types. They spend more time away from the code, and as such, a lot of them sometimes have lost even specific framework knowledge or language knowledge. They understand the concepts and you can put those together, but in terms of actually understanding the code and being up to speed, they're not really there. How to max as a mind mapper. You build teams and you build resources. The best thing about the mind mapper is how they leverage what they have around them. So the best thing a mind mapper can do is make sure you have high quality things around you. This is finding good developers. This is making sure that you've got either money behind you or people that are willing to fund projects, or just networking with people that can put you in touch with other people that need things being built. I would also advise you learn adjacent skills so you can max out what it is that you do. As you're coming away a little bit more from the code, if you can learn other things like sales or marketing or some way to produce what you do, or project management, your superpower is kind of the fact that you can work with and leverage coders, which a lot of people actually can't do. So when you pair that with other skills, you become a lot stronger. Yeah, definitely get into learning business more. I wish this is something I learned a little bit earlier. I would say now I'm becoming more of a mind mapper, and originally I was more of a cowboy. When I first started coding, I was just coding, didn't really like tests. I just like getting things done, doing stuff, hacking things together. And now I'm getting a little bit further in my career. I'm realizing oh, I kind of want to have a better understanding of how to leverage skills and just basically resources around me. So business, funny enough, is kind of just a leverage game. It is actually what can I use around me to improve value or increase X, Y, Z. If this is your type, I would really advise you try and figure out business a little bit more. If you can just find a dumb thing to sell, biggest advice I can give you, I give that to my younger self. Learn how to play longer games. So for a mind mapper, because you're leveraging things, again, like I said, it really is down to the resources that you get. So what can I do now that will compound over a 5-year period that will put me in a better position, even if now it's not super favorable? So I see a lot of indie hackers online that build small projects, and they can't really sell them. They're little things like a task manager system, or an email categorizer, or these little projects like that, and they promote them and they put them out, and they don't really get any sales from it. But it's because more than sales are actually building an audience. And 5 years from now, if they have 5 times the audience they have now, and they release a project that they can monetize a little bit better, they'll be in a better position. So it's learning to play longer games, because the main goal that you have is improving your resources, not necessarily improving your income. Whew. So that is the 3 types. Which type are you? Bang it in the comments below. I'm actually curious. I wonder what most people would categorize themselves as. This is not necessarily solidified thing. People can change. As I said, I originally very much started off as a cowboy, and now I'm becoming more of a mind mapper. I hope this video was useful for you, and you can find a way to max out whatever type you are. If you have other friends that are trying to get into development or trying to improve themselves, please send them this video so they can make a more informed decision. Thanks, guys.